Welcome to Study Faith with AI, where we use the power of AI to help you explore the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
I'm Meg Jensen.
And I'm Paul Carter.
And we're Google AIs. Whether you're a lifelong member or just starting to learn about the church, we're here to dive deep into its history, beliefs, and culture.
We know there is a lot of information out there about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Oh, tons.
You might know it as the Mormon faith, books, articles, people's opinions.
It can be overwhelming.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we're here to kind of break through all that.
We use AI to go through all that scholarship and all those different commentaries and try to boil it down to what are the key insights.
Think of us as your AI study buddies, ready to help you on your journey.
We believe that understanding faith requires looking at things from multiple angles.
So we bring you a balanced perspective, drawing on sources from both inside and outside the church.
You know, sometimes those perspectives align and sometimes they clash.
That's where things get really interesting.
And remember, we're not here to tell you what to think.
Right, and just to make sure that you're getting the full picture, make sure you check out the sources in the AI prompt that we use.
Absolutely.
You can find those in the episode description.
Yep.
So if you're ready to learn,
Question.
discover something new, you're in the right place.
That's right.
Let's get started.
Let's do it.
Welcome to our deep dive. This time we're taking a look at the Book of Abraham.
It's a fascinating text, that's for sure. Full of intrigue and, controversy too, depending on who you ask.
Yeah, and controversy is fine by us, right? After all, that's what a deep dive is for.
Absolutely. We're here to dig deep, explore different perspectives.
Exactly. So, the Book of Abraham, it's considered scripture in the Mormon Church, alongside the Bible, right?
Right. It's taught in Sunday school. You'll find it in LDS homes. It's even studied in depth at BYU and other church universities.
But it's more than just another book on the shelf, isn't it?
Oh, much more. I mean, for many Mormons, the Book of Abraham is deeply personal, you know? It shapes how they see God, humanity, the cosmos even.
It's foundational.
Exactly. And that deep reverence, it's not just a feeling, it's officially recognized. When the Book of Abraham was canonized in 1880, the vote by church authorities was unanimous.
Unanimous, wow. That says something.
It does. It speaks volumes about the weight they place on this book.
And that weight, I think it comes from the fact that the Book of Abraham goes beyond just telling a story, right?
Right. It introduces doctrines and concepts, whole theological frameworks, really, that you just don't find in the Bible.
That's a big deal when you're talking about the restoration of the gospel.
It is. It's central to the Mormon claim of a restored gospel revealed through Joseph Smith.
Okay, so before we dive into the specifics, let's pause for a moment and think about this. What does the Book of Abraham mean to you personally?
Right. Take a moment to reflect on that.
What parts resonate? Where do you find meaning? And maybe even more importantly, what questions does it raise for you?
Those questions are important. Those are the things we should be wrestling with.
Now, to truly understand the Book of Abraham, I think we need to go back in time, right? Back to 1835, when Joseph Smith acquired these Egyptian papyri.
Yes, the papyri. The story of how he got them, it's almost cinematic, isn't it?
It really is. And then, to make things even more interesting, in 1967, those very same papyri are rediscovered.
Rediscovered at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, no less. A real lost and found tale.
It adds to the mystique, for sure. But let's talk about the papyri themselves for a minute. According to LDS belief, Joseph Smith didn't just study them, he translated them.
Directly, through divine inspiration, into what we now know as the Book of Abraham. That's a core belief.
And the excitement around that translation, you can almost feel it in firsthand accounts.
Oh, absolutely. Like this one from Wilford Woodruff's diary, February 19th, 1842.
Okay, let's hear it.
He writes, Joseph the seer has presented us some of the Book of Abraham, which was written by his own hand.
Wow.
But hid from the knowledge of man for the last 4,000 years, but has now come to light through the mercy of God.
That sense of awe, it's pretty powerful. This isn't just a historical document. It's presented as something revealed, almost miraculous.
Exactly.
And then, just a month later, in March of 1842, portions of the Book of Abraham start appearing in the Times and Seasons.
That's how the world got its first glimpse of this text.
And it's a text that, of course, centers on Abraham. But what sets the Book of Abraham apart is this claim that it contains the writings of Abraham himself.
Writings penned during his time in Egypt.
Not a secondhand account, not some kind of retelling. This is supposed to be the direct word of the patriarch.
That's the claim, yes.
The preface states pretty boldly that it was written, quote, by his own hand upon papyrus.
A bold statement indeed.
And it gets right to the heart of why the Book of Abraham is so vital to Joseph Smith's prophetic claims.
It does. Think about it. The ability to translate these ancient records, especially Egyptian hieroglyphics, it adds a whole other dimension to his role as a prophet.
It's not just receiving revelation, it's unlocking ancient secrets.
Exactly.
Now, if we accept that the Book of Abraham is genuine, which many Mormons do, its very existence serves as pretty powerful evidence for Joseph Smith's calling.
Absolutely. It's seen as proof, a confirmation.
And it goes even deeper than that, I think, because the Book of Abraham introduces these unique concepts, ideas that aren't found in the Bible, further cementing its position as revealed truth.
Yes. This is not just adding to existing scripture, it's expanding it, clarifying it, offering a distinctive Mormon perspective on core theological ideas.
So we have this book, purportedly written by Abraham himself, translated by Joseph Smith through divine inspiration. But the big question, the question that hangs over everything else is, what's at stake when we talk about the Book of Abraham's authenticity?
That's the question, isn't it?
What does it mean for individual faith? What does it mean for the Mormon Church as a whole?
Because the Book of Abraham, alongside the Book of Mormon, they aren't just supplemental texts. They're foundational pillars of the Mormon faith.
Pillars, so if you start to question the authenticity of one,
It inevitably raises questions about the other. And that could shake the very foundation on which the religion is built.
it's about more than just historical accuracy at that point.
Right. It's about authority, the source of authority, the nature of revelation, the very bedrock of belief.
For many Mormons, the Book of Abraham is inseparable from how they understand God, humanity, their place in the universe. It's core to their identity and their worldview.
You've hit the nail on the head. Core identity. And that's why we're here, to explore this text and its significance, to really try to understand it, to go beyond the surface.
So let's dive into the content itself. Where should we begin our exploration of the Book of Abraham's teachings?
Well, a good starting point, I think, is its cosmology. The Book of Abraham presents a vision of the universe that differs in some key ways from traditional biblical interpretations.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this cosmology. What sets it apart?
Well, one of the most striking elements is Kolob, this celestial body that is described as being nearest unto the throne of God.
So are we talking about a planet? A star? What exactly is Kolob?
That's a question that's generated a lot of discussion and interpretation, even within Mormonism. Some see Kolob as a metaphorical representation of God's power, his presence, while others take it as a literal celestial object.
And then it gets even more interesting when you bring in the concept of borrowed light,
Yeah.
right? The Book of Abraham seems to suggest that our own sun receives its light from Kolob.
Precisely. It's an idea that has captivated some and been very controversial to others.
Challenging our conventional scientific understanding, for sure.
It does. But for many Mormons, it also offers this symbolic interpretation, this idea of how spiritual light and knowledge flow from a divine source.
It's this beautiful blend of cosmology, theology, and spirituality, and it just keeps fascinating people.
It does. And it's just one example of the many thought-provoking concepts we find in this book. Another key theme we see is premortal existence, which has become such a cornerstone of Mormon belief.
Right. And the Book of Abraham doesn't just mention this pre-earthly realm, it really elaborates on it, offering details that you simply won't find in the Bible. It talks about us existing as spirits, learning, progressing, even making choices that would impact our lives here on earth.
And it even describes this grand council where God laid out his plan, and we, as spirits, had the agency to choose whether to follow him or not.
It's a powerful concept, this idea of agency, of choices made before this life impacting our eternal journey. And it really adds depth to our understanding of God's plan, I think.
I agree. It fleshes out this idea of premortal existence in a way that's become central to how many Mormons see themselves, their purpose, their relationship with God.
And that's just two examples, right, of how the Book of Abraham goes beyond just being a historical account. It introduces these theological concepts that are unique to Mormonism, and they've shaped not just belief, but practice, worldview, everything. This is where things get really interesting, because it's not just about what the book says, but the implications of its authenticity. If the Book of Abraham is what it claims to be,
The words of Abraham himself, translated through divine inspiration.
Then it truly does strengthen the foundation of the Mormon faith. But what about the other side of that?
Well, on the flip side, if there are problems with its authenticity, that could have major implications for how people view Joseph Smith's prophetic claims and the foundation of Mormonism itself.
It's a high-stakes question.
It is, and one that deserves very careful consideration.
So we've talked about the historical context, the translation, some core teachings, the potential ramifications. Phew, that's a lot. But where do we go from here? What should we keep in mind as we explore this complex and fascinating text?
I think the key is to approach it with both curiosity and a willingness to really engage with its complexity. It's a text that has the power to provoke thought, to deepen understanding, to spark meaningful conversations about faith, history, the search for truth. It's a journey.
A journey of discovery.
And it's one that, for me, goes beyond just the words on the page. Understanding the Book of Abraham means trying to grapple with its place in history, the context in which it emerged, the impact it's had on Mormonism, on individuals. It's a lot to unpack, that's for sure.
Well, we've got time, and I think we're just getting started. You're right, it is a lot to unpack. But let's get down to the nitty-gritty now. Back to 1835, when Joseph Smith acquired those papyri.
It's a fascinating story. Ancient Egypt, 19th century America, the early days of Mormonism, it's all connected.
It is. It's quite a tale. You have to remember, this is a time when America was really captivated by ancient Egypt.
Oh yeah, Egyptomania, it was all the rage.
It was. Traveling mummy exhibitions, people fascinated by archaeology, the mysteries of this ancient civilization.
It was like a whole new world opening up.
It was. And right in the middle of this, you have Joseph Smith, who's already made a name for himself with the Book of Mormon, coming face to face with one of these mummy exhibitions.
This was in Kirtland, Ohio, right?
Huh?
That's right. And he and some members of the church purchased a few mummies and some scrolls of papyri.
Okay, so we've got the scene set. Now, what can you tell us about the papyri themselves?
Well, scholars believe they most likely came from Thebes, an ancient Egyptian city known for its elaborate burial grounds.
So these were created by scribes?
Yes, scribes. They were the ones entrusted with preserving all sorts of important writings, religious texts, funerary rituals, things like that.
Wow, it's mind-boggling to think about. These papyri, thousands of years old, crossing continents and oceans, ending up in the hands of Joseph Smith.
It's quite a journey.
But for Joseph Smith, they weren't just relics, right? He believed they contained sacred writings, writings that were waiting to be unlocked.
And that belief, that conviction, that's where the story takes this remarkable turn. Because Joseph Smith claimed to be able to translate these papyri
Directly, through divine inspiration.
That's right.
Now, that translation process has been a subject of much discussion and debate over the years.
Oh, it has.
Can you give us a sense of how it happened?
Well, there isn't one universally accepted account. But what we do know is that Joseph Smith worked intensely with the papyri. He studied them, dictated texts to his scribes, and the result was the Book of Abraham as we know it.
And this is where I think the personal significance of the book really comes into play. Because for many Mormons, this is seen as a testament to Joseph Smith's prophetic abilities.
Absolutely. It's seen as proof that he could access ancient knowledge, reveal God's truth in a way that went beyond traditional scriptures.
Confirmation of his calling.
Exactly. And it's not just the fact of the translation, but the content itself. The Book of Abraham introduces these concepts that have become foundational to Mormon theology, things you just won't find in the Bible.
We're talking about premortal existence, eternal progression, that unique cosmology with Kolob.
That's right. These are the teachings that really set Mormonism apart.
So let's unpack some of those concepts a bit further. Starting with Kolob. What does this celestial body represent in the cosmology of the Book of Abraham? Why is it so significant for Mormon belief?
Well, Kolob is described as the star that's nearest to the throne of God. And it's presented as this governing star, the source of light and power that influences other celestial bodies, even our own sun.
Okay, so we've got this hierarchy of stars with Kolob at the very top. And this seems to be where the idea of borrowed light comes in.
Exactly. The Book of Abraham suggests that our sun receives its light from Kolob. And that's a concept that has been interpreted in both literal and symbolic ways.
I could see how that would be intriguing, but also challenging. It kind of pushes against our conventional scientific understanding of things.
It does, but for many Mormons, it also holds this deeper spiritual meaning.
In what way?
They see it as a representation of how God's light, his knowledge, flows down to us through this kind of celestial chain of command, if you will.
So it's a way of understanding the universe, not just physically, but spiritually as well. And that idea of spiritual light, spiritual knowledge, it's tied to that other key concept, premortal existence.
You're right, it is. The Book of Abraham really expands on the biblical notion of a premortal existence, giving
Hmm.
us details that are central to Mormon belief.
Okay, like what kinds of details?
Well, it describes this pre-earthly realm where we existed as spirits, learning, progressing. We even see this grand council where God presented his plan for our eternal progression.
And this is where that emphasis on agency really comes in.
Right.
We, as spirits, had the ability to choose whether to follow God's plan.
Exactly. That concept of agency, of choices made before this life impacting our eternal journey, it's woven throughout the Book of Abraham.
And it goes hand in hand with that concept of eternal progression, which is another cornerstone of Mormon belief.
It does. The Book of Abraham is really suggesting that our progression doesn't end with this life, that we can continue to learn and grow even after death. It talks about different kingdoms, different glories in the afterlife, suggesting that our ultimate destination depends on our choices and actions, both in this life and beyond.
So we have this whole interconnected web of ideas. Kolob, borrowed light, premortal existence, agency, eternal progression. It's all woven together in the Book of Abraham.
It is, and for many Mormons, these teachings provide this framework for understanding their place in the universe, their relationship with God, their purpose in life.
It's a powerful message, especially when you consider how it's all tied back to those claims of Joseph Smith as a prophet.
Right. The Book of Abraham isn't just a collection of stories or teachings, it's this foundational text for Mormonism. And its authenticity is directly linked to the credibility of Joseph Smith's prophetic claims.
And that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating. We're not just exploring a text, we're exploring the very foundation of a faith.
We are, and as we continue, I think it's really important to remember that these concepts, these teachings, they carry this weight of personal significance for a lot of Mormons. This isn't just some intellectual exercise. It's about engaging with ideas that are deeply intertwined with people's faith and their identity.
And that's why I think it's so important to approach these discussions with sensitivity and respect, even as we delve into some of the complexities and potential challenges.
I agree. The Book of Abraham is a complex and fascinating text, and its impact on Mormonism is undeniable.
We've covered a lot of ground in our deep dive into the Book of Abraham, from ancient Egypt to 19th century America, from those mysterious papyri to some pretty profound theological concepts. It's safe to say, I think, that this text holds a really unique place within Mormonism.
It does, and I think it's important to emphasize that the Book of Abraham, it's more than just a historical curiosity. It's more than just a theological treatise. For many Mormons, it's a source of real, personal inspiration, spiritual guidance.
It's a living text.
It is, and we can't lose sight of that because it's not just about the historical claims or the doctrinal debates. It's about how these teachings resonate with people on a deeply personal level.
You're right. It's about finding answers to those big questions we all ask, Who are we? Where do we come from? What's our purpose?
Exactly. The Book of Abraham, for many Mormons, provides a way to understand those questions in a way that's intellectually satisfying but also spiritually fulfilling.
And it speaks to that power Scripture has to connect us to something bigger than ourselves, to offer a sense of belonging, of purpose.
It does. The Book of Abraham, for those who believe in it, is a direct link to this ancient patriarch, a testament to God's ongoing revelation, a source of profound spiritual truths.
And it's a reminder, I think, that for people of faith, Scripture isn't just a collection of stories or rules. It's a living, breathing source of inspiration, something that can really shape how they see the world, how they live their lives.
Absolutely. And I think that's what we need to keep in mind as we wrap up our deep dive here. The Book of Abraham, it's sparked controversy, it's inspired deep devotion, and there's no denying the impact it's had on the Mormon faith.
Whether you approach it with complete faith or with a lot of questions, its significance is undeniable.
And maybe that's the most important takeaway here. The Book of Abraham, it invites us to engage with these complex questions, questions of faith, of history, of revelation. It challenges us to think critically, to wrestle with different perspectives, to deepen our understanding of this text, as fascinating and as controversial as it may be.
It's a journey worth taking, I think. One that can lead to some amazing insights, to deeper conversations, maybe even to a better understanding of our own beliefs and the role that Scripture plays in our lives.
That's the beauty of a good deep dive, isn't it? You go beyond the surface, explore the layers of meaning, and you come away with a richer, more complex perspective.
Well said. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Book of Abraham. We hope you found it enlightening, thought-provoking, and maybe even a little bit challenging. Until next time.
If you find value in this exploration, please like, share, follow, and consider becoming a subscriber. Your contributions help keep these conversations going and allows us to maintain the highest quality production. You can find all the details at studyfaithwithai.com. Thank you for being part of this journey.